Hello, my name is Trevor Hanagan. I'm 48 years old. I live here in beautiful downtown Toronto. I've been with my partner 14 years, Francesco. He's a kindergarten teacher. I am interim director for security, fire and life safety, and connect at University Health Network. And I've been there going on 20 years now. And I guess my journey with transplantation began probably back in 2013. Actually, about 2012. So when I was frontline security, we used to do what was called patient watches. So if there were any patients with behavioral concerns, they would have one-on-ones with the security officer, and we would sit with the patients. And I did quite a few of those in hemodialysis and got to spend a lot of time with dialysis patients and hearing their stories, their challenges. And I remember really being impacted by that and just thinking like, wow, like, that life is not an easy one. Like that's very challenging. So that kind of just piqued my interest. And then just going back a little bit, so I was in the military for about 6 or 7 years. When I got out of the military, I took college nursing at George Brown. It was the last college year of nursing to go through. And that's because I have 6 nurses in my family, so I just thought that's what we do. Loved it, but I missed the my law enforcement drawing. So while I was in college, I picked up a part-time job in corrections, and that's where I ended up moving to. So I ended up in corrections, and then at UHN, about 7 years in corrections as well, and then that's what brought me to UHN in around 2004. So back to my transplantation. So in 2013, also still being frontline security, I worked in the emergency departments quite a lot. And on the night shifts, you get to form strong bonds with the nursing team, physicians, and all the staff. There's one nurse in particular who has since passed away. I love her to this day. Her name was Anka. And Anka and I, very similar personalities. I don't think I ever laughed as hard and as often in my life as I did when we spent nights together. Anka, Tracy, Bernice, and I. Lorna, good times. So we would talk a lot. You get to know each other. And through that, those bonding sessions, it came to me that Anka's brother-in-law was also going through dialysis and had, end stage, kidney failure. And we would talk a lot about that. And I just had so many questions around it. Like a lot of my questions were like, have you been matched, or has he had anybody in the family get matched? And she didn't want to have any conversations around that. No conversations around that. She didn't want any pressure, anybody feeling pressured or obligated like they had to do those things. But like one thing that stood out was they used to like to go to Jamaica a lot. And I can remember her telling me when she would go with them, the cost around organizing dialysis when you're away from home. And I just thought, oh my, like, that's just, that's just no way to live. Like it just seems, to me, it seemed so simple. An individual has 2, someone needs 1, give it to that person. I mean, so we talked about it ad nauseum all the time. And then I kind of made a decision. I mentioned it to Francesco, my partner, that this is something I was interested in. This is something that I wanted to do. And I don't know if he thought at the start that I was serious about it or not, but I proceeded anyway. I started at Toronto General, being assessed there at the Living Donor Assessment Program there. And that's where I ran into Julie Sissel, met her, and still love her to this day as well. Amazing woman. She's in the right job for her. She's just amazing. And got the assessment started. So that was a lot of appointments. I think the whole process took well over a year, but I can remember going to the appointments. So the one thing that stood out for me in particular was going to these appointments. You're like VIP. So living donors, you'll see the clerks or the nurses like, oh, this is so-and-so, he's here for, assessment, and right to the front of the line. Like I've never seen service like that or experience that in my life. It was every appointment I went to, one after the other, you're right to the front of the line. And for me, one thing that caused me to be a little neglectful to someone else's needs was just the intoxication of that process. Like I was I was just focused that this is what I wanted to do. I was so happy I was going to, be able to bring this to Anka and do this for her brother-in-law. And the appointments, you just get really immersed in it. And for me, it wasn't really a big deal for me. I mean, growing up with a whole family full of nurses, I mean, like I was exposed to a whole bunch. I heard all the stories when they come home from their night shifts, and you're medically inclined, like it's normalized in our family. So it wasn't really a big deal for me. But the one thing I would certainly add at this point is to make sure like your loved ones, so parents, husband, wife, whatever, are aware of the process, and you consider their feelings as well. I didn't do a good job of that. It caused a little friction. Even during friction, I wasn't aware of. Like he just soldiered on and just didn't say anything. I remember him saying to me a little bit later on, how do I say to someone, I don't want you to save a life? So he just kept that in. And it was very hard for him. It was very hard for him. I was very selfish around the process. He's not from a medical background family. So to him, he constantly had to deal with that, the stress and the anxiety of, why would you choose to have, a surgical procedure that is completely, really unnecessary. And I didn't acknowledge those feelings. I didn't even consider his feelings. I just thought, this is such a great thing. But yeah, so I can't emphasize that enough. Keep your loved ones involved, make them part of the process. I can't emphasize that enough. So assessment time, assessment is complete. And I can remember approaching Anka and all excited that I had my approval, ready to go, ready to send this guy off to his new home. And then she said, he has a donor. I said, what? And it turned out his son came of age and was able to donate. I mean, nobody had asked the son, of course, to do this, but the son came of age, was able to make his own decisions. So he received a transplant from his son eventually. And I was just, I guess I was like heartbroken. I was heartbroken. I was like, oh my gosh, like I did all this for nothing. But then they spoke to me about what is called, it's called different things, but I think with us it was called the Living Parent Exchange Program. So, my understanding at the time was if you have a non-directed or anonymous donor, like I was going to be, you'll have other pairs though. So say for, hypothetically, myself and my friend needs a kidney. I'm willing and ready to donate to my friend, but we're not a match. So you have those two people up here, those two people here. Then they'll find other pairs in the same situation and match them up. So like this person up here is matched with this recipient here, their kidney goes there, and then this is like a domino effect. And then my non-directed kidney at the bottom takes somebody off the wait list. So it's really, as it was described to me, the most bang for your buck. So I said, yeah, that's awesome. Let's do that. So we got matched to someone. All I knew that all I was provided. I wanted it to be anonymous, only because I lead with my heart. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I was concerned that in the future, if maybe the organ was rejected or the person didn't do well, that would impact me. So I thought, nope, let's keep it anonymous. And then in my mind, they live forever and have a magical life and no complications. So that's what we chose to do. But my match was in Winnipeg. So they had asked me, is there any possibility that you would be willing to go to Winnipeg? And I just immediately said, no, it's a group team decision, and my mom, Francesco, like that would just be a deal breaker. So they did work it out so that the recipient came to Toronto. But the pairs, there were so many people on the chain for transplantation that I believe there wasn't OR space available at Toronto General, so we had to do it at St. Mike's. So I just moved over to their assessment team, went through a few repeated tests and diagnostics and different things. In hindsight, as Julie had pointed out, that was the best decision, because working at UHN, being responsible for patient and staff safety at UHN, I don't know how much recovery I would have got at UHN. I mean, it would have been the best care in the world, but I mean, me laying in bed recovering, if I would hear, a code white or something overhead, I mean, it's just going to get me all excited. I'm going to think, oh, those are my people, and I need to go. So Julie was right. Best decision ever at St. Mike's. Actually was able to recover. I hear a code white. I know there's other well-trained people there that are going to manage that. Doesn't involve me. So that brings us to, I guess, the day of surgery. So I remember bringing, my mom and dad divorced many, many years ago, but everybody's friendly now. So my dad was there, my mom was there, Francesco was there, and it was nice. It was nice. I mean, I remember my dad on one side, my mom on the other side, just before you go into surgery. Francesco was right there with me, and it was just nice bringing the family together. So surgery went off without a hitch, no problems at all. I should actually say, like during the assessment process, they do one of their only primary, their main goal is to ensure the welfare and the health of the donor. So what that means is you have to make sure there is complete informed consent. So I would have little pop quizzes every now and then about risks, side effects, complications. You have to be able to know what those are and articulate that back to the assessment team so that you're making like a completely informed consent. And so I had all those memorized. I knew all of those things. And I'm sure maybe what I'm going to get up to was in a pamphlet or a flyer somewhere, but it just didn't cross my radar. So had the surgery, no problems at all. I can remember waking up. I was in a little bit of discomfort, but I had my my PCA, my patient controlled anesthesia, so that was okay. No problems. I remember everybody was at the bedside. I remember just being very groggy, hugging my pillow, and then I remember feeling, oh, I have to pee, and but they leave a catheter in, of course, because it's, again, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but they dump a lot of fluid through, like saline, just to flush, I think, to get the other kidney, like give it a bit of a kickstart, to pick up all that, the extra work. And on occasion, that extra fluid can settle in places. So I remember really the only shock, first and only shock I had during surgery was when I had the catheter. I'm kind of a nosy guy, so I'm like, let's see what that catheter looks like. And the fluid can settle, I guess, in the scrotum. And that, so just my shock, I remember looking down going, there's a guinea pig between my legs, like just this big fluid engorged scrotum. And I was like, whoa, I can remember the high-tech solution they had for this. So the nurse was just very like, no problem. She just grabbed a couple juice cups, like the little ones you get in school or in the hospital, the little plastic juices, and they have the foil cover on them. She's like, we'll just prop those up, it'll drain right out. And I was like, I'm sorry? She was like, just put these under your scrotum. I remember just going, I'm sorry, you're gonna walk me through, I'm not understanding you. And she said, no, just put them underneath and the fluid will drain out. And sure enough, low-tech solution for a very shocking situation. But like I said, that part, I don't recall that crossing my radar because I would have remembered that. So that was a little comical, and I didn't see that in the flyer. So recovery, I was in the hospital, I think only for 2 or 3 days. It might have actually been shorter. I remember being told the goal, like, you can go home as soon as you have a bowel movement. And I thought, easy peasy, sister. Like, yeah, no problem. Like, I'm a Hanagan. We can bang those out on command. Yeah, no such luck. So I guess surgical processes or anesthetic or something, or is it a combination of anesthetic and the medication they give you slows down, peristalsis, different things in here. And yeah, so having a bowel movement was not an easy venture. So I was there until I had that successful bowel movement. So I was very excited to have that. And I remember Anka, she came to visit me in hospital. And I just remember walking, you want to get up and you want to ambulate, you want to get things moving again. So I can remember doing my rounds just around the unit, holding onto the railing, trying to walk. I mean, because there's an incision here in your abdomen, and just laughing nonstop. Oh, that woman. I miss her so much. But yeah, so that recovery went okay, very straightforward. But boy, they treat you so well, so well. I think, I mean, from my experience, I mean, all the practices are wonderful, but from my, my time at UHN anyway, transplant and cancer staff, clinicians, even EVS staff, everyone that works in either cancer related or organ transplant, because that's been my, what I've seen a lot, just extraordinary people. Like that means that makes the experience. To me, it did. To me, it's like the humanity piece, and then the surgical, medical, pharmaceutical stuff. All important, all importantly. But for me, it was just the reassurance they gave you. Um, just wonderful, wonderful people. So discharge. I went home with mom initially. Francesco wasn't, I think he was a little uneasy having to do nursing care at home. I'm like, so apparently I'm not a good patient. He was just like, no, 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 no. Your mother was a nurse. You're going to her house. And then when you are stable, or then I will welcome you back home. So I did that, went to mom's for a little bit. And I can remember she'd just gotten, she's always had huskies, and she just got a husky puppy. So I can remember just laying down on the couch and getting comfortable, and this puppy comes bounding down the hall, leaps under the couch, and lands right right on my abdomen. That was I think the only time I had pain through the whole process was that lovely, wonderful puppy bounce. I was off work for about 4 weeks, and back to modified duties just after week 4, and back to full duties around 6 weeks. It was really very, very easy. I have a very, very small incision, like just, maybe 3 or 4 inches on my bikini line. And then just a couple little spots where they use the tools, like laparoscopically. I mean, no problems there. The one thing that was hard for me was like my energy levels. So I guess that's different for everyone. But I guess the kidneys job really, I think, is to clean the blood, is my understanding. That's the kidneys job. And blood happens to transport oxygen, and oxygen is required for the body, for energy, life, all of these wonderful things. And it takes a while for the remaining kidney. I think it's normal that it will swell up in size a bit, just to, picking up for the extra activity and extra work that it has to put in. And I guess maybe mine took a little longer to do that, but I can remember really struggling to get out of bed in the mornings. I was really, really tired. I just thought, oh my, I can't. This is really hard. Like, I hope this isn't a forever thing. And they keep reassuring you, it'll get better. It'll get better. And sure enough, it just sort of changed, and everything was really, back to normal. Yeah, but I can't emphasize enough your family, like your internal circle of care, just keeping them involved. The process can be very, like I say, intoxicating. So you really have to keep others involved. In hindsight, if I had been more aware of, Francesco's needs, or maybe his questions, I'd like to think I still would have gone through with the surgery. But I certainly think I could have done better in getting him prepared for that, because he was scared. He was scared. We had been dating probably about 3 years when I had the surgery, and 3 years, everyone's amazing still. Like I'm still awesome. I mean, I'm sure he tolerates me still now. It's been 14 years, but yeah, at the 3-year mark, I mean, that's not something you want to have to entertain or consider. And yeah, I cannot emphasize that enough. But otherwise, there's no reason. It's a personal decision. It is a personal decision. I can remember asking Francesco, and not like I was, keeping a stamp card for transplantation, or looking for, give so many organs, you get something free. But I thought, hey, it'd be cool to also be a non-directed liver donor. Like that would be amazing. I mean, even though that surgery scares me more, because I mean, there's, a lot more surgically involved. So I remember asking Francesco about that, and he just said, yeah, that's hey, honey, if that's what you want to do, I wish you and your next ex all the best with that. I just remember thinking, oh, that's a no. Okay, all right, we'll call it a day and leave it at that. I can remember like right after, I think it was the second day after when I was, recovering in hospital, they came by, which I was surprised they come by and give you this like really beautiful medallion, like a William Gift of Life coin that's in like this nice velvet, which is really nice. That was a nice surprise. Um, but yeah, the experience is just amazing, and you're part of a community. I still go to events. If they have transplant events, I'll go. Free or paid tickets, I go to either. I think it's good to kind of network. Uh, Transplantation is really amazing. It is. Whoever came up from, I don't know if it was CBS, Canadian Blood Services, that came up with the slogan "It's in you to give," but there cannot be a more apt saying for what sums up transplantation. And there's no need to be afraid. I know you're going to be fearful. For me, it was almost a little therapeutic, if you will. So for me, I mean, I'm not. I don't want to say I'm a control freak, but I have control issues being in law enforcement. Just similar to like Francesco teaches kindergarten, so he thinks everyone in the world are good people, and occasionally they do bad things. Unfortunately, what makes me good at my job is I just assume everyone in the world, they're all capable of evil things, and occasionally they do nice things. So little different, mindset there, but just it's I can't speak highly enough about it. I think we need to do um, a lot more outreach because this is just it's such an easy win for people, an easy win. The important piece there um, is for yourself as well. You want to make sure that you're in good headspace. I did go through a bit of like post transplant anxiety, like after surgery when I was at home and mom got tired of hearing me whine. I'll be sitting on the couch there, kind of reflecting, and then it starts to. I started having realizations that I knew I was going to be missing the organ. I started to have a bit more, you know, you know, thoughts in my head, like, okay, I mean, I know you really only need one, but now if I need something, but part of that process is the education they give you up front. I mean, I accepted all those things. There is a plethora of things that can go wrong in life, and you just have to part. For me, it was just part of like relinquishing control and putting your well-being in the hands of these professionals. I found it particularly helpful meeting the surgeon ahead of time. I mean, I know they still do that now. Um, but the part around the mental, I mean, you have to be all in a good headspace anyway. That is of the utmost importance, because that energy, that lack of energy I had, that really did a number on me for several months. And not having that energy, I just thought, oh my goodness, did I make the wrong choice? Is there like a 30-day or 60-day kidney back guarantee? Like all of these things were going through my head, but then I just said, no, they said all things in time. So you just have to have someone that you can, keep talking to about that. And I did. I mean, I've got all my friends that were nurses, and I called them all regularly and asking input for things. Um, but yeah, the family, I just can't emphasize that enough. I mean, I don't know if they do this now. And I remember I had to have like a psychological assessment, which I get. I think it was just to ensure that your reasons for donating are sound, you're sound in making sound decisions. And I honestly think if Francesco might have had an opportunity of just being my partner, if he had had the opportunity to do that, maybe in a confidential space, maybe that would have been better. Like he did tell me that he didn't speak to me about a lot of his concerns because of that. That's how he felt. How do you say to someone, please don't save a life? So he internalized a lot of that, and that he had a lot of resentment for many years, and we had to work through that. And he didn't tell me for a long time either. So when he did, it really impacted me. So it is a team decision. It's not something you have to do by yourself. But I would certainly say, whoever is going to be involved in that. That you do try and bring them to your appointments, to the assessments, and ask a lot of questions. There are, as you can tell from my my mystery under the sheets, there you can't get the answers for everything. So ask lots of questions. I mean, especially if you're the donor, they want you. They want to answer your questions. They want you to be healthy and informed moving forward. It's interesting, without getting into too deeply about what my therapist and I talk about regularly, which I do, and I am very proud of that. I working in healthcare, especially through COVID, I started using at work we have the employee assistance plan that provides free confidential counseling, and I know how COVID impacted me, because I wasn't really on the floor as much as my team was. So I just thought lead by example, and but having someone to speak to is certainly a true asset there. But you have to remember, the donors, they've chosen, like in my situation anyway, they've chosen to do that and to make that choice, like with full informed consent. But for me, there were, the parts about control where it helped me to completely relinquish control and just, hands off the wheel, let somebody else take that control. But at the same time, with the job I do, and a lot of my coworkers and my teammates that do the exact same job, especially on the front lines, that's a certain type of person as well. And sometimes we protect others. I mean, that's our job, is to keep others around us safe and keep the environment safe. And sometimes I see this with my team quite regularly, where an incident will happen. Maybe it was an incident involving some violence, and then when we're looking at that and debriefing, it's not uncommon for me to have to say to my team, just remember, everything went well, but your own well-being, like you really went in there quickly, you really did this quickly. So sometimes we do things without thinking about our own well-being as caregivers or as safety makers. That's a lot in the personality of people that work in law enforcement or security. So I think that maybe some of that played into that. But otherwise, like, organ donation is something I thought about a lot, even growing up, and when I was in college, I always thought kidneys were cool. I just thought they were an amazing organ. So it's very personal, and it's a very individual choice. Very recently, I did notice at UHN, I don't know if she's a physician or an assessment coordinator, but I did see a news story about one of the team there that had donated a kidney, and I thought, well, that's amazing. That's really awesome stuff. I just think we need to do more on the awareness piece, because it's so simple. It's so simple. I just think people are really scared about that. The big things are the fear of the surgery, and I think the other thing people struggle with is, well, what if I need this kidney for later, either for themselves or maybe for children or different things like that. Yeah, I don't think I'm having any kids at this point, but you never know.
There have been a lot of laws that have been passed in the last few years for the LGBTQ plus community, but I'm wondering if there are some fears or distaste for this community because of the discrimination that's happened within the queer community, if there's a distrust to being part of this still, or any of those types of fears to then put yourself in a system that hasn't accepted for a very long time.
Well, that is a really good question, because I did struggle with that. It wasn't ever really deal breaking enough, but when I say I struggle with it, what I struggled with as a gay male then was that my kidney, yes, we would love your organ, but a month before or 6 months after, if I wanted to go give blood, I couldn't do that. And that to me, obviously didn't sit well with me. But I mean, how I managed that, or came to something in my head, was that the recipient, I mean, he or she, they don't make policies. They don't make policy. It shouldn't impact them, but it really, I struggled with that for a long time. I mean, actually, I could give blood back then, but you could be gay, but you had to be, I guess, non-practicing gay. So you had to be celibate or something. And which is absurd, right?
Hmm.
Like all blood products, and blood plasma products are tested rigorously now anyway, and even 10 years ago they were. So I struggled with that a lot, and I think there was even some exemption paperwork they had to complete. But it was no problem at all. But I struggled with that little piece for sure. Like
Hmm.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah. But ultimately, the recipient doesn't have an impact on that. I did struggle with that a lot. But again, it's government. It's macro people that make those decisions and policy choices. Um, yeah, I did struggle with it certainly, but it wasn't a barrier for me. It wasn't fair to impact the recipient that way.
Would you want to meet your recipient if you were able to?
I'm in a good place now. Especially many years of COVID therapy. I'm in a great
Mhm.
place now, so I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think that would be really cool. I would like if, of course, if the recipient was willing to do that. I'm in a good place now where I would be more than happy to meet them. I'm not going to say if they're still alive, because of course they're still alive. I'm sure that she's thriving and she's extremely successful and doing amazing in her life, and all of her kids love her and everyone's great. But I think I would now. But I was very vehement at the start that I did not want to know who it was. No, just take my kidney, find him, find it a wonderful home, and we'll call it a day. But yeah, I think I would now. Yeah, absolutely. It is something to consider. I think it should be talked about more. I wish they would talk about it in school early on, but nowadays you have to be very careful what you talk about in school. My goodness, I have some other friends. I was one girl I worked with at Starbucks when I was in college. She ended up donating to somebody, but she reached out to me and had all these questions. Some of the questions I didn't even think about. So if it's something you're thinking about, just go to an assessment center, ask some questions. And they have people like me who are more than happy to talk to you about it, answer all your questions. But it's just it was really it's what I needed at that point, and even today, it just makes me feel good. It's an accomplishment. It's something I didn't have to study for. I didn't have to write exams for. I didn't have to apply for. It was something in me, just like that saying is, it's in you to give. And it was just, it's a magical experience. Just a magical experience.